Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Jay here. Cheers. Cheers this morning. Coffee. Welcome to my coffee hour. Wow. That's great. Wow, what a couple of weeks. And I apologize for not uploading last week, but things were real busy. Obviously, highly emotional couple of weeks too. But I was doing a lot of things. I've been working, doing daily coatings inspections, thanks to my buddy Eddie. And we've been working together on some water tanks for some municipalities nearby. So, I'm not sure if you can even hear me on this job site, because the compressors are running and it's pretty loud. We're going to walk over here. Hopefully you can hear me. And just take a look at what's getting done over here. So, behind me is a big tank. Behind me, they're blasting the old coating off. This is how we take the temperature inside with the power detector. So there you can see the readings, and it's against the interior surface. Alright.
Okay, I'm going to pull a chunk off of this off for micrometer check.
Okay.
Now I'm going to go up here to this area here at the top of the post. It's just pretty hard. Pretty crazy looking.
Yeah.
A lot of corrosion underneath. Just to prove that more is not better when it comes to a coating. Batch reading DFT Pro.
And let's see, that's a lot of fun actually, and I enjoy that work. And it's just a few hours a day. Also doing a lot of estimates for my paint business, but it's slow right now. It's those slow months, winter months for us. You know, we're kind of waiting to get the COVID thing. I don't know what's going to happen and how soon, but we're hoping that, you know, maybe this spike kind of goes down and the vaccine gets distributed better, and etc., etc. But in the meanwhile, I have been enjoying life as much as possible. Playing a little bit of music. That was just a little, I don't know, couple of things I strung together there. It's not a song yet or anything, just playing the guitar a little bit. And I do that in the mornings. I kind of mess around a little bit with an instrument for a little while. I usually try to upload more, but you know, you get busy, and you know, it takes a long time to upload these videos, edit and upload these videos. YouTubers will tell you. But I appreciate any of you who stick around and tune in to me as a performer, an artist, I guess. There's some innate egoic need in my personality to perform, to be in front of people at some point. So this is a good venue. I mean, we can't go out and play. We try to have socially distanced rehearsals with the other members of the senior discounts. Sometimes it's just 3 of us or whatever. But it's hard because you're you know, in a room with a mask on trying to sing, and the guy's over there, another guy over there, or whatever, and trying to mitigate the germs, I guess. And you can't hear very well. You can't hear each other very well. It's just frustrating. And I'm not technologically savvy enough to be able to figure out the Zoom thing right now, or how they do those Zoom performances. I have no idea. It's pretty amazing. Anyway, maybe you can figure it out at some point. By the time this is over. I've been doing a little bit. I started a series of whittles called Gnome Man's Land. And this was my first whittle, and I don't know if you remember the last time I showed some pictures. Let's see if I can get it. Focus, 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 focus on there, please. Oh, how come you're not? There we go. This is the little gnome sitting down, taking a rest, and has this walking stick in his hand. And then here's a upright standing gnome, but kind of looks more like a hillbilly, sort of, I think. But he's holding his stick. You can see. Anyway, so I did that, and you saw the pictures I had drawn, the sketches I had done. I've still got one more I want to do in that. Started trying to figure out a way to whittle spoons, spurtles, or spattles, and sporks. Anyway, I'll show you those at some point when I see how far I get with that. So it was a lot of fun, and the obvious, what I wanted to focus on today was, talk about the history of recording, because one of my subscribers is in South Africa, and I've been communicating a lot with him about, he also has a VS1880 workstation Roland recording machine, which is kind of ancient technology at this point. Most people are using DAW's digital audio workstations, computer programs basically, and with an interface that plugs into your computer, and then you can plug in your microphones and things like that to record. The workstation is nice. The VS1880, I like it. It's kind of a mobile mixer too. You can kind of move to where the action is, so to speak. The obvious elephant in the room this last couple of weeks has been, the politics, and I don't get into that much on my channel. It just seems like there's an awful lot of hatred and rage going around, being spewed all over the place. And what I have to do, and what I would probably ask like the rest of America to do, is turn off the damn TV, watch what you do on social media. I mean, it's a lot of negativity and hatred, and I can't start my days that way. I've got to be a positive person. I've got to be happy. I mean, it can make you miserable really, really quick. So change the channel, watch some, my buddy says, watch Andy Griffith in the morning, the reruns or something like that. If you're a young person, don't believe everything you hear, see, or whatever, what people are spewing. There's just so much hatred right now, and such a tense time. Well, enough said about that subject. I want to talk about the history of recording, sort of, because this friend in South Africa, the type of music they play is Indian folk music, and from India, the nation of India. It has tabla drums and a couple other kinds of drums. I don't get the names right, I'm sorry, but it also has a harmonium, is a very centric part of the music, which is an accordion-like instrument that you play sitting down. And it's very interesting dynamics, and of course the harmonium is fairly loud, and the drums are fairly loud. And we were talking about, do you use compression, limiters for limiting the spikes of the music, or he's got some microphones and he's trying to learn how to record it a little better. And I was thinking about how recording has evolved, even in just my lifetime. You think about the 1930s, 1940s, the big band era. I mean, you've got 20 guys performing, making music and sound, a big sound, and a lot of times they just put up a couple of microphones if you were lucky in a studio. They really only had one channel a lot of times back then to record it, so they just put up one microphone, and the band played, and that's what you got for a recording. Then they had one track, but then they could at some point they could mix several microphones. Plus the electric guitar came along. That was, in the 40s and 50s. They invented electric guitar, and that kind of changed things, a little bit, because you could now amplify the guitar sound in a big orchestra setting or whatever. So you went from very simplistic recording setups to the 70s, the late 60s and the early 70s. Recording became a very complex process on tape, and it was still analog. Analog is like human beings are analog, where it's a physical, the information is physical, as opposed to digital, which it's, ones and zeros, it's binary, it's not physical. So, they take that information, the sound, the physical sound, and turn it into a digital signal instead of an analog signal. Anyway, the point, like a record. Record is analog because it has a needle, and the needle cuts grooves into a piece of wax or plastic or whatever the disc was, the original disc. And we went from that platform, and they might have had more than one mic in a studio, but it was all being recorded onto like one source. So the mix you got was the mix you got. It wasn't like you could go back later at some point and, oh, the piano's too loud, so let's pull that down. The drums are too loud, or, mixing the instruments together. You had to do that by ear in the studio or by microphone placement. And so I would say, if you, and my daughter's trying to get into audio engineering. She wants to go to school for that. And these kids today, all they know is the digital audio workstation, and they haven't had the training that goes way back. And a good recording always starts with a good microphone and good microphone placement. That's the number one thing to do. On acoustic guitars, the consensus in the recording industry is, and I don't have the benefit of, I always had to learn everything. I was behind the curve of technology all the time because I was poor. I wasn't a big star. I loved recording and making music and writing music, but I wasn't a big star. I couldn't afford real studio time. So back in the day, we had these cheap little Radio Shack cassette recorders. They were a box and had a little speaker in it, and then it had, stop, forward, rewind, play, the little keyboard buttons right there, and your cassette tape, and you loaded the cassette tape in, and you hit record, and you stuck the thing in the middle of the room. It had a little tiny condenser microphone in it that sounded like crap. It just was like horrible sound, scratchy, tinny. They never produced a very good recording. And then cassette recorders came out with really nice, dual cassette recorder machines that went through your stereo or whatever, and those, if you had a mixer, you could mix it down onto those and you could have stereo, even 2 tracks or whatever. So there was an evolution that was going on, and I was always way behind things. And really, a big leap in recording technology came with George Martin and the Beatles. And then tape, where they had multi-track studios. They went from 4 tracks to 8 tracks to 16 to 24 tracks to 32 tracks. All on thicker tape that ran through a big machine. And the sound got cleaner and cleaner without hiss and things like that. So there's been a big evolution in that, and I think about that a lot. It's kind of fascinating to think how far we've come in recording technology. Right now, the sound's being recorded onto this camera through a shotgun microphone that's kind of pointed at my head, and hopefully you could hear the guitar, through it okay. It's pretty good sound. It's not, by any means, like me doing an actual recording of stuff for sound. You would place the microphone right about in front, not in front of the sound hole like a lot of people think. Usually they put the microphone pointed right at about the 12th fret, or a little bit 14th fret, somewhere in there, and off at about probably 8 inches away from the guitar. So, and that gives you the most fuller sound out of the guitar, picking up, and sometimes two microphones. They might put one over here too, pointing at the sound hole, kind of. So, but there's many different techniques. Drums have come a long way. I was thinking about it because my friend in South Africa, the drums are a very intricate part of the music, the type of Indian folk music that he does. And in the room, they're very resonant and very loud. And even with the one microphone over the top, you get the full ambience of the drum sound. And I think about in the 1970s and 80s where people were independently miking the drums and compressing the crap out of them, really just high compression, and you got this kind of boom sound, like a very quick snap sound without any reverberation or echo or room noise or room sound coming, because they close mic all the drums. And they do that for live concerts still. But a lot of times they'll close mic all the drums and then they try to add a little ambience into it with a little reverb or some kind of digital delay or something that they try to wet the sound up again. They call that wet when you have a room that echoes or reverberation, I guess. So some of the greatest recordings were of drums in a room with one microphone. I think Led Zeppelin, John Bonham, I think he used to record, I think I read somewhere he recorded in a hallway outside of the room where the guys were playing or something, and they just set up his drums and put one microphone in there. I think Phil Collins has used techniques like that. This whole evolution of sound and what sounds good is just based on what gets played over and over, and then if people like something and it's interesting to them, a new sound, well then a bunch of other people try to copy it and do it too. I thought of that when my friend was asking me about compression and things like that when it came to the Indian folk music. But what I don't understand, because I live in Western culture, I don't know what's considered a consensus of what sounds good as far as the reproduced sound, recorded sound of Indian folk music. It may be that in the purest form you just want to hear the acoustic instruments and sound like you're right there listening to it. So the same thing is with a lot of traditional Irish folk music. A lot of times they get into a pub and they play in a big circle or whatever. Well, if you wanted to record that sound like it really occurs, well then you'd have to go in there maybe with a couple of microphones and just place them, condenser mics that pick up a lot of area, place them in a certain configuration, one on each side or whatever, and turn them up hot enough to get a decent signal, and then flip the switch and record it. It's evolved into a lot of things, and now a lot of people on the digital audio workstations, they have little keyboards where they can simulate a lot of different instruments. So sometimes you don't even have a microphone and live instrument. You're just writing parts, sampling those parts, putting them together, layering them together, quantizing the beat so that it's perfect in time, looping the sections, cut and paste the sections and create music that way. That's legitimate. I know there's purists that would get really upset about that do, but to me, that's a legitimate art form. That's legitimately making music. You're using the digital tools that are available to you, but you're creating music, and some of it's quite interesting and beautiful. So things have evolved, and I just want to kind of go over that. It's not very informational, but if you're old enough like me, you've kind of lived through a lot of these technological changes. I have to stay kind of on top of them, just so I know what's going on. I still like using my VS 1880, but at some point I may have to switch over. My daughter just got set up with her. She's got a Macintosh laptop with interface and a MIDI controller, keyboard, and she's starting to make music now. So that way, and she has, you can plug a mic into it and can sing, and or she can plug a guitar or a bass into it and play, or mic the guitar and play along. So you don't have to get studio time anymore. You don't have to pay for studio time. It was so expensive when I was in the music industry to try to get into a studio and cut a demo or anything like that. Oh my God, we couldn't afford it. Especially if you're a poor musician and you were playing for $20 a night or whatever it was. I mean, you can't. You're lucky if you could buy a peanut butter sandwich. So things have changed a lot. People have a lot more at their disposal. Thank God. I mean, that's a good thing. I've got to get going to work here this morning. And I hope you'll keep tuning in. I really appreciate the comments that people send. And it's really neat. I've made a friend in another country doing this. That I feel kind of a kindred spirit as far as like he's trying to record his type of music. And we share information. And I'm learning a lot about another culture's music. I really like the polyrhythms that they have going in the music itself, and I'm trying to figure out the scale or the tonality of it, listening to it, and it's just real interesting. It's a smaller world now. I appreciate all of you and your comments, but I hope you have fun and you're enjoying this, and turn off the rage machines. Okay, you watch Andy Griffith reruns or Old Western channel. I like that too. I like the Old Westerns. And we will see you next week, hopefully. Or maybe before then. You never know. Maybe before next week we can do it. And it's Jay out.